Small Soldiers hit theaters in the summer of 1998, grossed over $54 million domestically, assembled one of the most quietly stacked casts of that entire decade, and burned itself into the memory of every kid who watched plastic soldiers wage actual war. But what happened when the cameras stopped rolling in 2026 is more dramatic, more heartbreaking, and more surprising than anything that ended up on screen. Child stars who became household names, voice legends whose real lives were stranger than any script, and one cast member whose story ended in tragedy before this film ever reached a single theater. Let's see where they all ended up.
Watch it! I'll have your dog tag!
Number 1, we have Gregory Smith as Alan Abernathy. Alan was the resourceful teenager who accidentally unleashes chaos when he lets a restricted military shipment through his dad's hobby shop door. Gregory was just 14 years old when cameras rolled, and he carried the lead with a confidence that made actors twice his age take notice. What most fans never knew, after Small Soldiers wrapped, Gregory nearly walked away from acting entirely. The gap between child star and working adult actor is brutal in Hollywood, and Gregory felt every inch of it. Nobody saw what came next. He landed a central role in Everwood, then headlined the Canadian police series Rookie Blue as a lead character for 6 full seasons, 2010 through 2015, over 60 episodes. He also moved into directing behind the camera, something almost no one predicted. In 2026, Gregory Smith is 42 years old, actively working, and one of the quiet success stories of his generation. The boy who fought plastic soldiers grew up to call the shots himself.
You rescued me!
Anytime.
Number 2, we have Kirsten Dunst as Christy Fimple. Christy was Alan's sharp, unflappable girl-next-door neighbor. Kirsten played her with natural magnetism that made every scene feel effortless. She was 16 during filming, and even then, everyone on set could feel it. This wasn't a teenager going through the motions. This was a future star finishing her warm-up. 3 Spider-Man films as Mary Jane Watson, Best Actress at Cannes in 2011 for Melancholia, a career that moved from blockbusters to prestige drama without missing a step. What most fans never knew is how hard that peak hit her. Kirsten has spoken publicly about battling depression in the mid-2000s and entering a treatment facility in 2008. She came out transformed, more grounded, more selective, completely in control of her own story. In 2026, Kirsten Dunst is 44 years old, partnered with Jesse Plemons with children, and still actively working in prestige film and television. The teenager from a movie about killer toys ended up conquering Hollywood entirely on her own terms.
Allow me to introduce you to Major.
Number 3, we have Jay Mohr as Larry Benson. Larry was the slick, corner-cutting toy company rep who greenlights military microchips in children's toys without blinking. Jay played him with fast-talking grin energy that made you distrust him immediately. He was 27 at the time, riding a genuine wave off Jerry Maguire opposite Tom Cruise just 2 years earlier. Here's something wild. A very public and painful divorce dominated Jay's headlines for years. He never hid from it. He talked about it on stage and used it as fuel. Rather than becoming the marquee leading man Hollywood briefly imagined, he built something more durable, a massive comedy and sports media audience through stand-up touring, the Jay Mohr Sports Radio Show, and podcasting. Over 200 live performances in the decade following his divorce alone. In 2026, Jay Mohr is 55 years old and still actively touring. The slick salesman from 1998 turned out to be the most authentic version of himself all along.
We're just caught up in some stupid game. Well, game over.
Number 4, we have Phil Hartman as Phil Fimple, and this one hits differently. Phil Fimple was Christie's cheerfully clueless suburban dad, the guy who grills burgers while chaos unfolds 3 feet away. Phil Hartman played him the way he played. Everything, with effortless timing that made every line land harder than it had any right to. He was 49, SNL legend, news radio fan favorite, the voice behind Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure across 52 Simpsons episodes, a man at the absolute peak of his powers. Small Soldiers never got to open with Phil Hartman in the world. On May 28, 1998, just 6 weeks before this film reached theaters, Phil Hartman was shot and killed at his home in Encino, California. He was 49 years old. His wife, Bryn Hartman, took her own life the same morning. The tragedy stunned Hollywood and left a hole in American comedy that has never been filled. The detail that makes everything feel poetic. Phil once said what he loved most was making families laugh together. Small Soldiers was exactly that kind of film. A summer movie, a picture where dads and kids sat side by side and shared something warm. He never got to see it. In 2026, Phil Hartman would have been 77 years old. Instead, he remains forever 49, a man whose genius will outlive every frame of every film he ever made.
Too bad. This would have made a hell of a commercial.
Number 5. We have Denis Leary as Gil Mars. Gil Mars was the ruthless CEO who weaponizes children's toys and calls it innovation. Denis played him with barely contained fury and boardroom confidence that made every terrible decision feel inevitable. He was 40 at the time of filming, what most fans never knew. While Denis was playing a heartless executive on screen, he was quietly building one of the most important charitable legacies in entertainment. The Leary Firefighters Foundation, established in 2000, has raised tens of millions to fund equipment for fire departments and support families of fallen firefighters. Then came Rescue Me on FX. 7 seasons, 93 episodes, 2004 through 2011, where Denis played a deeply flawed New York City firefighter navigating grief and brotherhood. Many critics called it the finest work of his career. One of the most striking reversals in this entire cast, the man who played a soulless CEO became the face of working-class heroism on television. In 2026, Denis Leary is 68 years old, still outspoken, still running his foundation. The heartless executive from 1998 turned out to have one of the biggest hearts in the business.
And how do you explain this?
Number 6. We have Kevin Dunn as Stuart Abernathy. Stuart was Alan's well-meaning, overwhelmed father who runs the hobby shop at the center of the storm. Kevin brought grounded warmth to that role that kept the film emotionally honest. He was 41 during filming. Here's the twist. Kevin Dunn became one of the most quietly prolific character actors in Hollywood without ever chasing the spotlight. All 5 Transformers films as Secretary of Defense Keller, a franchise grossing over $4.8 billion worldwide, a standout recurring role in HBO's Veep, earning a Screen Actors Guild Award with that ensemble, over 70 film and television productions since Small Soldiers wrapped. That is not luck. That is a craftsman who never stopped working. In 2026, Kevin Dunn is 69 years old and still active. Few actors from 1998 stacked a more impressive career and did it entirely without ego.
Let the first shot be fired! Search out the Gorgonites and frag them all!
Number 7. We have Tommy Lee Jones as the voice of Chip Hazard. Chip Hazard was the cold-eyed, mission-obsessed leader of the Commando Elite. Tommy Lee Jones gave him a voice equal parts menace and dark absurdity, making a 5-inch plastic figure genuinely threatening. He was 51 at the time, fresh off his Academy Award win for The Fugitive, and already iconic from Men in Black. What most fans never knew is how deliberately Tommy Lee Jones retreated from blockbusters after his commercial peak. He became almost ruthlessly selective. No Country for Old Men, Lincoln alongside Daniel Day-Lewis, The Homesman, which he also directed in 2014. In 2026, Tommy Lee Jones is 79 years old. The man who voiced a 1-inch plastic soldier built one of the most quietly towering careers in American film.
Major Chip Hazard seeks the location of the Gorgonite scum.
They are not destroyed.
Number 8. We have Frank Langella as the voice of Archer. Archer was the noble leader of the Gorgonites, the misfit toys who just want to find somewhere to belong. Frank gave him quiet, Shakespearean dignity that turned a voice role into the emotional backbone of the film. He was 60 at the time of recording, already a Tony Award-winning stage legend, one of the most remarkable stories in this entire cast. In 2008, a full decade after voicing a lost toy searching for home, Frank Langella received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for Frost Nixon. He was 70 years old when that nomination arrived. 70. In 2026, Frank Langella is 88 years old. The voice of a toy searching for home turned out to belong to a man who was never lost at all.
Kip Killigan, covert sergeant, sharp as a razor. Sir.
Number 9. We have Ernest Borgnine as the voice of Kip Killigan. Kip Killigan was built for combat, wired for destruction. Ernest Borgnine, Academy Award winner and a man with 5 decades of screen credits, brought thunderous authority to that role at 81 years old. Still recording, still delivering on every take. He voiced Mermaid Man in SpongeBob SquarePants for over a decade. He appeared in feature films past the age of 90. Across 58 years and over 200 productions, his work ethic was simply one of the most extraordinary in Hollywood history. Ernest Borgnine passed away on July 8, 2012, at the age of 95. In 2026, he would have been 109 years old, a record of creative longevity this entire cast will never match.
Butch Meathook, sniper. Lethal from any distance, sir. Good to have you aboard.
Number 10. We have Jim Brown as the voice of Butch Meathook. Butch Meathook was built for pure intimidation, and Jim Brown, NFL Hall of Famer and civil rights activist, brought exactly that at 62 years old. A man who had already lived 3 extraordinary lives before this film existed. What fans never fully appreciated is how seriously Jim Brown took his off-screen advocacy. Through the Amir I Can program he founded in 1988, he worked directly with gang members and incarcerated individuals across the United States, a sustained commitment to rehabilitation that ran quietly alongside everything Hollywood ever saw of him. Jim Brown passed away on May 18, 2023, at the age of 87. In 2026, he would have been 89 years old, one of the most genuinely impactful figures in 20th century American life.
Link static. Communications. Awaiting dispatch of orders, sir.
Number 11. We have Bruce Dern as the voice of Link Static. Link Static was the most unpredictable commando elite soldier, erratic, dangerous in a completely different way than the others. Bruce Dern gave him crackling, unhinged energy that fit perfectly. He was 61 at the time of recording. Here's the real-life contrast that makes this entry remarkable. Bruce Dern spent decades being criminally underused, a character actor with leading man talent handed supporting roles. Then in 2013, 15 years after voicing a plastic soldier, he received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for Nebraska. He was 77 years old, followed it with a major role in Tarantino's The Hateful Eight in 2015. The comeback wasn't a comeback. It was an arrival. Finally, on the terms he deserved. In 2026, Bruce Dern is 89 years old, the most persistently underestimated talent in this entire cast.
Brick Bazooka artillery, ready to go full bore, sir.
Number 12, we have George Kennedy as the voice of Brick Bazooka. Brick Bazooka was the heaviest, most imposing soldier in the Commando Elite. And George Kennedy, Academy Award winner for Cool Hand Luke in 1967, brought genuine gravitas to that role at 73. What strikes you looking back is that George Kennedy never once treated any role as beneath him. Over 200 credits across 5 decades. From the Oscar stage to the Naked Gun films to this, he showed up every time and delivered. George Kennedy passed away on February 28, 2016, at the age of 91. In 2026, he would have been 101 years old. A man who spent his whole career being the biggest presence in the room. ending up voicing the biggest soldier in the film.
Nick Nitro, demolition is my mission. Served with your father.
Number 13, we have Clint Walker as the voice of Nick Nitro. Nick Nitro was the first Commando elite soldier to fall in battle, a warrior who meets his end before the war is fully underway. Clint Walker, the towering 6'6" Western icon who starred in Cheyenne across 107 episodes from 1955 to 1963, gave that moment a weight no one else could have brought. He was 71 years old when he recorded those lines, but here's the story that stops you cold. In 1971, Clint Walker suffered a skiing accident so catastrophic that a ski pole pierced his heart. Doctors declared him clinically dead on the table. He recovered. He came back. He kept working for 5 more decades. Well into his 80s, the man who voiced the first soldier to fall had already cheated death himself, in real life, with a ski pole through his chest. Clint Walker passed away on May 21st, 2018, at the age of 90. In 2026, he would have been 92 years old, a warrior on screen, a genuine survivor of it, and proof that some stories are simply too remarkable to be fiction.
It may not even...
Even if you can't see something, it doesn't mean it isn't there.
Small Soldiers brought together one of the most quietly extraordinary casts of the late 90s. A teenage lead who became a television anchor, a 16-year-old co-star who conquered Hollywood, voice legends in their 70s and 80s who treated every line like it mattered, and one irreplaceable comedian whose name appears in credits he never got to see open. Some of those voices are gone now. Some of those careers burned far brighter than anyone predicted, but every single one of them left something on that screen worth remembering, because the best performances always do. Drop the name of your favorite Small Soldiers character in the comments. Let's see who people remember most.